Hi everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Low-Code Café, episode 52. For those of you that are new to this event, know that it's something that we do every week, hence the 52nd edition. And it's an event, it's a technical event where we bring in our community, we bring in our team to present various techniques, various topics, upcoming features in our product. So it happens every week, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central US time. And my name is Bogdan Litescu. I'm the founder, and together with me, I will have Reza, our head of product, giving the upcoming releases highlights, and then we'll have Dale, our head of product, doing some stories from the trenches, recording them in our webinar, after which we'll have the hands-on part. The hands-on part today will be building an application based on QR codes, which I think is very cool because we see QR all over the place more and more in the past year. And make sure to engage with us via chat window, via Q&A, raise your hand. There's always also a feedback form that we are going to post in the chat window, so make sure to submit it. It really helps us improve the content of this webinar every week. This webinar is being recorded, and all past editions are available on our YouTube channel. There are 51 of them, of these videos, and they are one hour long, but all have chapters, so it's easy to navigate if you only want to see the, let's say, the from the trenches part, or the hands-on part, or the product roadmap part. Very easy to navigate. So thanks again for joining this, and I will now pass it to Reza. Enjoy the content that we prepared for you today.
Thanks, Bogdan. Hey, everyone. Just kind of a quick update on the roadmap. Went through things. I kind of had the show last week, so want to kind of leave Dale plenty of time to show his stuff. We're still on track with the dates you see above. We're, like I said, this release, we want to kind of do a full deep regression of the product. There's been a lot of change, cleanup of code, refactoring, some security enhancements, new features and things, and just making sure that we test both through, clean new instance, upgrade path, and really give a good workout of everything. We'll extra touch this time and make sure that, as always, I can live up to the words that the best version of Plantain app to be on is the newest version. So that's where things are standing. We're a couple weeks out right now, still tracking towards that. We find anything that needs adjusting or something that could impact the timeline, but so far we're on track there, and got the new workflows token coming, and some enhancements to the skin, and some other goodies. So be on the lookout for that.
Reza, one question. Since the date is July, Craig also points it out. Is that the good?
No, sorry. This is my. There we go. The background better.
Yeah, now makes sense. Cool.
Okay.
Great. Are you complete, Reza?
I am whole. There's no question.
Right.
Comments.
Well, hello everyone. Going to do a very brief from the trenches segment today, and it really ties in with what Bogdan mentioned a minute ago about the 51 hours that we have. It's great that we have a library being built up from our videos, and I came last week looking for something that, I knew that we had done it in a video, and I didn't know how to search YouTube. Okay, that may be a factor of my age, maturity, but if you don't know, you can go to our youtube.com/plantainapp, and that's where you sign up and be part of, get notified of when we post a new video. But in that, there is a search button, particularly there. And so you can use that to say, for example, grid to form or any of the things that we've talked about in the past, and Google will search through our chapters and find that information. So if you remember having been to something, or if you're looking for something, that's yet another way to find our content. And so we are putting a lot of effort into putting chapters in, and hopefully the search terms are useful, that you can jump right in and see examples or discussions about the things that we're putting into the product. Great. That's all I wanted to touch on in From the Trenches, and that leaves me a good chunk of time to talk about a QR-enabled inventory system. So the goal today is to build something from scratch. I have an almost from scratch environment that we're going to get into. But first, let's talk about what it is that we're going to do. The scenario is that there is artwork, and in our obviously made up scenario where we have all these masters on display at the Romanian offices. The idea is that we want to keep up with where they are. Are they on display? Have we loaned them out? Have we put them in the vault? And so we're going to use QR codes on either next to or on the back of the artwork to identify which one we're talking about, and then use that to either provide more information. Visitors to our offices can scan the QR code and see the details about what we're about that particular piece, or our staff, the manager, can use the QR codes to view or edit an artwork, change the location, and update the scan date. So that's the scenario. And within that, there's a great article on Wikipedia talking about QR codes. And I think I'm going to get more into this in our campfire discussion on Friday, because there's a lot of different ways that QR codes can be used. And this is just one of them. But that's a great article. And then there's a tool that I'm going to use that's based on there's a free tool, goqr.me. And if you, interactively, you can type in here and get a QR code. So if you need a one-time use QR code, you can come to here and get one generated. And so, if you were to scan that, it would say, "Welcome to Plantanap." Now, I say scan that. Part of what this is relying on is the idea that all the modern phones have built this into the camera. So you point your camera at a QR code, and if it's a URL, it tries to open it. So that's the underlying development that allows us to do. You've seen it. If you go to a restaurant in the age of COVID and they've put their menu out, you just scan the QR code and up comes their menu. And so we're going to take advantage of exactly that technology. So this outfit, goqr.me, has a QR code API, and I'm going to be taking advantage of that so we can embed it directly into our app. So let's see. I'm going to flip over now to kind of our development step. And I'm also going to have it on my second screen here so I can watch along as I go. But here's what we're going to do. We have an environment, and the only thing that I've done, I've loaded Plantanap and added manager. Manager in the manager role, password manager. So when we get into doing this, you'll be able to test this out if you like. But we have a manager that can sign in on a phone and do management of our artwork. What we're going to do is create items, artworks, as entities, and they're going to have locations. So those are the only two tables, only two entities we're going to create, artworks and locations. And then we're going to develop a scan page. And the idea is that our QR codes are going to point to the scan page. And so all of our work in directing how we're going to respond to a scan is going to take place on the scan page. So then I'm going to generate I'm also going to create a token that will do the QR code work so we can call it easily and get QR codes where we need them. So you'll see me do that. And then, as I said, we're going to link everything, all the artwork and the locations to the scan page. Scan page is where all the logic is going to happen. And the logic is going to be, if you're an unauthenticated user, then it's just going to take you to view the artwork, view the description of the artwork. If you're a manager, it's going to display options that you can have, where you can either view or edit the option to view or edit the artwork, or to make changes to the artwork based on what you've scanned previously. And since we've got 45 minutes, I think we're going to be able to build all of this. So let's get started. I'm going to clean up here. The biggest challenge I think that we're going to have today in keeping up is that because, I mean, we'll eventually pull out the phones and use the QR code, but we'll also simulate that on screen so that you can see it versus doing it all with a phone. So we'll be doing there'll be some, I guess the biggest challenge is going to be just keep up with me as I flip from tab to tab. So as I mentioned, we have the only setup I've done in this environment is going to be that we have Plankton app version 1.14, so it's the stable version, the most recent released version of our product, and we have a manager set up as a manager. And so here we go. Let's get started. We have some entities that we're going to create, and I'm going to keep it in line with my demo system so I don't get too far afield. So the first thing is going to be locations. So here we are. Let's do it. I'm going to create a namespace, which we've talked about in recent episodes, and I'm going to call it the inventory namespace. And we're going to select that. And the first entity that I'm going to create in that is going to be location. Plural, and we do want this in the menu. I'm just going to keep this all very simple. I don't need a dashboard. And the only property I'm going to need here is what is the name of the location. So we're going to select that as the property, and sure, we'll make it sortable. And then from a permissions standpoint, we're going to say that all users can view all entities. We want to make sure that that this information is accessible to people who are unauthenticated in our system. So we'll save that and let it generate. The next entity that we're going to create is our artwork. So this will also go into the inventory entity, into inventory namespace. We'll select that, and this is going to be work and artworks, and we are also going to put that into the menu and continue. And this is there's a few more properties here. Let me make sure I get them all. So we're going to have a title, which is a text field, and we're going to make that going to be our hyperlink to get to detail. We're also going to have a description, which will be a large text. Who the artist is, just be a text. We're going to have a location, and this is going to be from our entities. We're going to pick a location, so this will automatically provide all the input and validation against our location table. And then we're going to have a scan date. And if we have time, we'll actually get into implementing the scan date, but that's going to be a date and time field. Now, within this, I'm going to make all of these, at least some of these, description, artist, location, are going to be searchable. And we'll be able to filter by artist if we want to, so that makes sense, and filter by location. And then I like to make everything sortable if at all possible. It just makes it easy to work with. And then in the same way, we're going to go to our permissions, and we want to make this available to our users, our standard users, and also our unauthenticated users. So this gives us our two entities that we discussed. So let's see what that looks like. I am going to open that up and we see our items. And so now we got to populate a little bit of data. And so we're going to have the first floor, west wing of our offices. And we'll also have first floor in the east wing. If you haven't been to our Romanian offices, they're very impressive and you should absolutely stop by. We can also put things into the vault, and so we'll do that. And then sometimes we loan out artwork to the New York Metropolitan Museum. So we'll have that as a location as well. So we have our location set up, and now we're going to do some with artworks. So I'm going to do a little copy and paste here from, find some paintings. The first one that I'm going to do, one we're particularly proud of, is the stoning of St. Stephen. And I'll just put the description of this. I'm borrowing it from Wikipedia. So we're going to pop that in here. And of course, the artist for this is Rembrandt. And we'll copy and paste. I'm not going to put in any location or scan date for this yet. And let's see if I can find another of our Rembrandts that we can put information in on. Here's, where'd it go? And there's another one that is Rest on the Flight into Egypt. And this is also Rembrandt. Have a description for that one. So we'll skip this one. That's going to need to be filled in somewhere down the line. So at least we have two paintings and some locations to work with. And I guess let's verify that our location connection is working. We see our locations here. We'll just put them into the vault. They are in the vault at the moment. So we'll put them there. So now we have, let's see where we are on our map. We have some entities with locations, and we have some test data, so we're good to go. So now we're going to create a scan page. So within our pages mechanism, we can add a page, and this is, we're going to just call it scan page. It's going to be visible in the menu. It doesn't have to be for this case, but it's easier to navigate around while we're developing. So this is our scan page, and we're going to make it available to all users, but we're also going to make it where the admins can edit on this page, because we're going to drop some stuff on there. We need to be able to access it. So we'll save that, and then we'll go there. So here's our scan page. This is going to be the target of everything that everything the QR is always going to go to this scan page. So let's look at our next step. We're going to have some tokens that we're going to create, and they're going to handle generating QR codes to get us to that scan page. So if we go into tokens, I am going to add a namespace. It's going to be inventory. And the first token that I'm going to create for that is going to be called scan page. And this is going to be a constant token, and the content of that I've copied, and now I'm pasting the URL for our scan page. So this is just going to make it where it's a little bit cleaner to look at our when we create tokens, we'll be able to use the scan page token. So if, like we save and test, we have this thing in inventory : scan page, and it pops out the URL. So it makes it just a little bit cleaner to work with. So now let's talk about the, and I'm again looking on my cheat sheet here for things that we're going to do. The next one we're going to create is a token to create a QR code. So I'm going to add another token. It's going to be called QRCode. And this is this will create a QR code using Go QR Me, their API. And that's a free API. The definition of this is also going to be a constant token, because what we're going to do is just put some HTML in here. And so we'll see if we can build this up. This uses an image tag where the source comes from the API, and we pass it some information. So it now comes down to passing in the right image source so that it does what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to copy and paste that. The basic URL, let me get that, is this. So it's the api.qrserver.com. It's a version 1, and we're running the create QR code endpoint. We're asking for a size of 150 by 150 pixels. You can manipulate the size of what you're going to get based on what your needs are, but this seems to work out pretty well in my testing. And then we're going to pass it some data, and whatever we pass it in the data is what's going to be embedded in the QR code. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do the inventory scan page. We want the URL to be encoded into the QR code. I'm going to put a question mark on it, and we're going to pass it some data, and the data is going to be whatever gets passed in a token. So we're going to create a token params. Data. So this token is going to accept some data, and then whatever that is going to be added to the end of the query string. And so let's test and see where we are so far. So it passes in a default value of value, and so we can see our plant and app URL. And didn't do a very good job here. Scan page value. So oh yeah, that's fine. So the value, for example, we might pass is artwork equals 1 or something like that. And so this URL would now be what's going to get encoded into the QR code. If we render this as HTML, magically this creates the QR code. It goes out to that server and grabs that. So now that's an image, and in our various tools, you can generate an image and save that. You can put it into a PDF. You can use it in a variety of ways, but I'm just going to be displaying it on the screen. So we'll use the QR code to do that. So then the next thing is that I want to put a title underneath this. So I'm going to put in a break, and then the title that I want to do is actually, I'm going to do it as a, we'll start with it as this way. We'll do another params title, so that when we test that, whatever is passed in shows up underneath. But I really want that because it's hard, because we want to be able to test using the on-screen rather than having to do everything with the QR codes. I'm going to actually build a hyperlink. So we'll do an ahref equal quote, and we're going to use this same hyperlink in the href. So it will be hyperlinked to that page, and we'll close it with a /A. And because I want it to go into a new page, we'll, let's see, we'll go with start equals blank. And we'll save and test that. And so now we have a hyperlink, and if we click the hyperlink, we can see in the lower left there that it's going to go to our scan page. So we've built up a nice token that's we can use that to generate any kind of a QR code. And so that gets us through that point. So the next thing we're going to do is let's go to our artwork and use this hyperlink. So I'm going to just copy this, and we'll be able to use it on our artwork. So on our artwork, the idea here is we're going to put in a button that will display. You could do it in a number of ways, but I'm going to put a button in that will display the QR code, and we'll be able to use that. So we go to our listing, and we'll add that button. It's going to be an item button. So that's in our item buttons. This is actually a special button called Inline Details, and we're going to call it QR. In the data source detail view, what we're going to do is we're going to use our token to generate it, and what we're going to put in here is artwork equal ID, which is coming from the ID that's being displayed as a column from our data source. And then we're also going to grab the title and be able to display that in our token as well. So the title is going to be title. So if we save and refresh, we now have a QR button, and if we click it, we see the title, and the QR code appears as it gets generated. And because now it's the time we can actually try this. If you want to pull out your camera, you're welcome to join me along. But with any luck, this is going to send you to our scan page with nothing on it. It's going to be completely useless, but it's the first step of the journey. And I find that it's doing that. So, and then our hyperlink is going to do the same thing. It takes us to our scan page, and we can see the artwork ID of 1 showing up there. If we did it instead for this alternate painting and use that hyperlink, we now see artwork ID equals 2. So we've got this working, linking the artwork to the scan page. What I'm also going to do, though, is to link the locations to the scan page. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, except it won't be an artwork. It's going to be a location. So we go into our item buttons and add a special button, the inline details. We're going to call it QR. The detail is the same token, and the value is going to be location equals ID. Again, we have an ID column in this table, and the value, the title is going to be name. And these both come from our data source. We have an ID and a name. So this is going to get us linked to our scan page for our locations. And so if we do it, for example, in the vault location 3, so we do the QR code, we now have a QR code and a hyperlink that will take us to our scan page with location equals 3. So we're down to this point. The items, the artworks, and the locations are linked to the scan page. And so now it just remains to build the scan page logic. And so the first one we're going to do is we're going to have a form on here that takes unauthenticated users and immediately views the record. So I'm going to close down a couple of things here. We're working on our scan page. and because when I made this, I'm an admin. Because when I made it, I said that admins can edit the page. It lets me click here and be able to add things to it. So I'm going to add an action form to the grid, to the page. And we've got .NET New puts this extra thing in here, which I'm going to delete. And just checking, checking the comments. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, if you have comments, questions, and somebody will call them out if I'm going too fast, or if you need something, feel free to drop those in. So I'm going to manage the form, and we are going to start a blank form. I'm going to call this the scan form, and as a matter of preference, I like labels on the top, so I'm going to do that. And this scan form is going to do, again, the work of taking this unauthenticated user and getting them to that page. So getting them to a display page. So what I'm going to do is, on the pre-init actions, I am going to add an action. This is going to be a redirect to a portal page. And we are going to send them to artwork detail. And we got to look exactly to see how we do it. But first we have a condition. This is going to be user ID equals blank. So if they are an unauthenticated user, they're going to get redirected immediately to this page. Nothing else is going to happen. The only thing you can do if you don't have an account is to get sent to the artwork to look at it. And then, so now we need to look at what the query string is supposed to be for this. So let's take a look. When we look at artworks and we click the hyperlink, the stoning of St. Stephen, Flanton app has generated this detail page for us that lets people view and edit it, edit it if you have permissions. And so we see the format that you need to get here, artwork ID equals 1, will get you to this particular detail. So we're going to use that in our query string. So, but instead of saying artwork ID equals 1, we need to use the ID that's being passed into the scan page. So we're going to get artwork. So whatever the artwork ID is, that's what is going to get passed in. So, and it's going to just open that right up immediately. And that's it. We're not going to build anything more here. We're going to save and go back. So now this scan page, if there is an unauthenticated user, that's what's going to happen. So let's see this at work. We go to, wrong one, okay, we're going to go to artwork and take a look at the stoning of St. Stephen. And in this case, to simulate an unauthenticated user, and not using our QR code. By the way, you could do this. If you want to scan this code, it should work for you. But I am going to open this in an incognito window. And so we see it pop up. It went through the scan page, and then boom, it takes you to the stoning of St. Stephen. So kind of going on what we're making sure we understand the perspective of this. This is not terribly useful in a, this is useful for testing, but the idea again would be that we would print out a QR code that's hanging on the wall next to the artwork or on the back of the artwork. And so anyone could scan this and find out what it is. And so we've built that. So, you know, this has application to other things. If you had an inventory system and you had something, a QR code on a box, anybody, if you want to allow anybody to scan and see what that box is, they can just walk up to it, scan it, use a common cell phone camera, good to go. So we have achieved step one. The scan page takes unauthenticated users and does an immediate view of the data. Now we're going to go on to managers, and so this is a little bit more involved. But the idea is that they're going to have some extra options. They're going to be able to use those location scan codes and be able to perhaps update the artwork. So let's test that out. Let's start developing that. So as a authenticated user here, it's taken me to I've clicked this, it's taken me to the scan page. And so the first thing that we're going to build is an option that lets somebody who's logged in do the same thing, view the artwork. So we'll go to our scan form, and I am going to do that in the form of a button. So we'll add a button, and so this is going to be called view. And we're only going to show this button if they're logged in. So, oh no, actually, we're already covered whether or not they're logged in, because unauthenticated users are going to be directed away immediately. But we only want to show it if there is an artwork in the URL. So we're going to say if the get of artwork is not blank, then we're going to show the button. So if they're scanning something other than an artwork code, it's not going to show the view button. This will only apply if they have that. And then when they push the button, what we want to happen is that we will redirect them again to that same page. The page is artworks detail, and the query string again is artwork ID equals. So we're going to say and then whatever came from the query string. And so this is send them to the detail page. So I like to just test piece by piece to make sure that we're getting where we need to go. So we've arrived at this page with an artwork. If we arrive at this page without an artwork, our button doesn't show up, so that's fine. But when it has a button, has an artwork, and we click it, it's going to take us there. So somebody who's logged in would be able to get to this and view it, and because they're logged in, they would have the ability to edit it as well. So that covers view and edit. So we've gotten that view and edit. But the next thing we want to do then is to be able to leverage QR codes so that you can scan things and make things happen. And so, for example, you can scan a location and apply the location to the artwork. And so this would be useful if you're going to move something out of the vault and into a different location. You can do that. And we can do that for any number of properties. I'm just doing location so far, but in an inventory system, you might want to be able to update quantity or status or condition or anything, and you could just expand this logic beyond that. But we'll just do location today. So what we're going to do is customize our scan form and add onto it a text field called location, or location name more accurately. So I should have done common field. I just want a text box. This is going to be called location name. So the idea here is that when the URL contains a location, we're going to display the location name. We have to get that data. We'll do it on pre-init. And so we will read a location. So again, unauthenticated users are out of here. We don't have to, this is only for people who are logged in. We're reading and displaying the location. The record ID that we want is the get location. So, and then we're going to put this in a token called location. What we're this is going to get us the record, but while I'm doing it, I want to do a special version of this. I'm going to use get or session. What this is going to do is persist the location for the duration of the user's session. So when they come here from scanning the QR code, it'll be on the URL and we'll have a location. When they come here from somewhere else, for example, from scanning an artwork QR code, if they've already scanned a location, it's going to be in their session, and so we're going to have access to that as well. So this is how I'm persisting between different scans of the QR. So that's a pretty important point. So we're going to get out of this location as a token. So we can go up here and say in our location name, we can display the name. And so that's going to be its initial value of location name. And this really only makes sense to display if it's been provided. So I'm going to use get our session location as a condition. We're only going to show this if get or session location is not equal to blank. So if we've got one, we'll show it. If we don't have one, we won't show it. And let's work with the layout just a little bit here. I'm going to pop this up. And now I'm going to narrow this down a little bit and put this over here. So let's see what this looks like. Again, I'm big into testing along the way. So I'm at my scan page. I don't see anything. I don't have a button. I don't have a location. But if I go to the locations page and I simulate scanning for first floor west wing, we now, because there is a location code showing up, the location is being read and displayed and it's available. So we have a location. And so now I'm going to add an update button. So if we go to our, I'm sorry, flipping back to our map here, we're going to have an apply updates option so that when we scan something, it will apply. So I'm going to add another button. This is going to be apply updates. We only want this to show the update that we're applying it to. What we're applying the update to is when we're dealing with an item. So if we're doing get artwork is not blank, then the button is going to show up. And what we want to do for an action on here is we want to partially update the artwork. So if there's a location, then this will execute. If the location is blank, it won't. So this partially update only applies to this one field. We don't want to blank out the location of something because it hasn't been scanned. So that's the reason behind this. And so we're going to say the artwork that we want to update is the get artwork. And what we're updating is the location, and the value that we're going to give it is the location. If anybody's confused, it's time to ask a question. So, and then the last thing that we're going to want to do, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to use my view or edit buttons redirect. I'm going to copy this because we want to do the same thing. after we apply the update, we're just going to jump over so we can see the update. So we'll import this action and make sure that we've got it right. So we're going to go to the detail page, looking at the get artwork after we apply the update. So we'll save and refresh, and let's see where we are. So we've scanned a location, and we have the location name showing up. If we go back to the artwork and we say that we want to, having scanned the West Wing as where we're going, if we want to move this from the vault, Stoning of St. Stephen, from the vault into that location, we would go to open the scan page. We can see now we have an apply updates. I really should display the name of the artwork so that it's very clear what we're working on. But when we apply the updates, we can now see that this item has moved to the first floor of the West Wing. Cool. We're still not out of time, so I'm going to move on to one of the other things that's useful in an inventory system is to apply the scan date, right? So if every time that you scan something, to be able to display that, to be able to store it, that keeps up with when was the last time we saw this. So this thing was last inventoried on such and such a date, and then that opens up the possibility of looking for things that haven't been scanned in a while to make sure that you correctly that you don't have anything missing. So I am going to work with the scan date. So we'll go to the scan page, and I'm going to display a scan date here. I find that's most useful to display it. And so we're going to go back to our scan form, add a field. This is just going to be a text field, but what we want to do is to be able to have the scan date displayed. The scan date we need is a very particular one because we have because we're working with a date-time field. We need one correctly formatted so that it will save. So in my pre-init here, I am going to add a run SQL option that's going to get me the date I need, which is going to be the current UTC date. So we're going to select select it out of SQL, and it's going to be called the current date. I'm going to extract that column and store it as the current date column, and as the current date token. And what this gets me is there is a variation of, in current date, there is a colon ISO as UTC variation. And so this is the date that I need to apply to partially update the artwork's scan date. So we will initialize the scan date field with current dates column ISO as UTC. So let's see this at work. We have the date, so ugly column width, but here it is, scan date. Every time we refresh this, we're going to get whatever the current date is on the system. And so it's the date, UTC date with a Z on the end of it, but this scan date is suitable for using in the apply update functionality. So we can go to the scan form, and it doesn't have to be displayed that way, but I find it's just very useful. And let's clean this up a little bit. We're going to put the apply updates button up here, narrow this down so it's not quite so ugly. And we're going to modify our apply updates button and add another action. So it's going to be this same thing. I'm going to clone it so that I can move right along here. So this is going to be update the artwork scan. This always happens, right? If they've scanned it, then we have one, and we don't have to conditionalize that. We're going to apply it to the same artwork, but it's going to be the scan date that gets updated, and the value that we're going to give it is scan date, which is the ID of this field right here, scan date. So our steps now are that we update the artwork if there's a location, we update the location, and then we update the scan date always, and then we go to the portal page. So let's see if this works. We refresh out of here, and if we go back to our artwork and look at the stoning of St. Stephen, it's now on the first floor west wing, but it doesn't have any scan date. I'm going to close things out here just to keep the confusion at a minimum, but if we go to the stoning of St. Stephen and we scan this thing or use this hyperlink, we're now working with artwork. The artwork equals 1, and if we were to apply the updates, it's going to again go to the first floor west wing, but it's going to apply this scan date. So we apply it, and now we see the details, and now we see it has a scan date. Great. So I'm going to go back and look at our artworks, and then I suppose I really should prove this is going to work. And so anybody, if you want to take, if you want to take a look and scan the QR code and take a look at this behind the scenes, you're welcome to do it. And let's see if I can prove to make it work. I need to log in on my site, and I'm going to make my life easier to do that. So I'm going to scan that. Got to get myself signed in here. And logged in. And so now, again, this is a spot where you use your imagination. We would have a sheet of location codes, a piece of paper that would have these things available so that you wouldn't be scanning them off the screen. But I am going to use my camera to scan a location, because I'm going to scan that we're loaning this piece out to the New York Met. And so we'll open that up, and on my screen it says the location name is New York Met. And then if we look at our artworks, and now I'm standing next to the artwork, and I'm going to scan the back of it, the rest on the flight to Europe, Egypt rather, and scan that. And it shows me the apply updates button, and I hit it. So now if I go to my artworks, we can see that it's now at the New York Met, and it was scanned on the 21st. Okay, so I've been doing a lot of talking and got as far as I hoped to. There's a lot more that you can do with QR codes. And as I mentioned, we're going to take some of that up as part of Campfire on Friday. That's our open meeting. And I think you're getting an email to that. So I hope that if you haven't participated, that you'll join us, and we'll continue this discussion a little bit. And
we do have a question, Dale. I think it's a very important question. How did you get the dinosaur inside the QR code?
That is a great question. So within Google, within Chrome, there's this create QR code for this page, which is real handy. This is anywhere, right? If you're in Chrome and you want to take a page with you on the road, you can do that, and it will create the code for you. So, if you're on a weather page and you want to bring it to your phone with you, if you're using Chrome, look for that one. It's very convenient. But if you read about, and I pointed you to the wiki earlier, the wiki has the description of how QR codes work and the fact that they are error correcting. You can miss half of this. Well, not half. If let's say a quarter of this or an eighth of this could be obliterated, you could have a tag that's scuffed up and it will still scan because there's error correction built into it. And so people take advantage of that and be able to put in logos and things like that. And if you were to do not much of a search on Google, you'd find somebody that would have a service that would let you embed a logo into the middle of your QR code and still be scannable. So that's a great question. And yep, and Mark has let us know that others can provide the dinosaur, but also provide, as I say, there's other, you can put your logo in the middle of it. And really it will also support different colors. It doesn't have to be black and white. There's really quite a description on that. And the wiki article that I pointed to talks about those kinds of things and provides some great examples. Also some limitations about what you can put in a QR code. But today I've just been focusing on putting an HTTP, a URL into it, but you can use it for other things as well. And I think that's the question. So if there's nothing else, I think we've come to the end of our time. Bogdan, did you want to jump in with anything more today?
No, I think it was a wonderful tutorial to see. I think nothing broke. That's like something big for a live demo such as this. I didn't want to say anything, so not to jinx it, but I think it was very, very nice seeing building it from scratch.
I'm usually looking for Radu to help me out in the background.
So that's what he's been doing.
But yes, today it didn't need it, so I appreciate that. The demo bug did not bite, and so yeah, it's a nice presentation, a small app in 45 minutes.
Wonderful. Great. Thanks, Dale. Thanks, Reza, for giving us this content today. Everyone else, thanks for joining again. See you next week when we'll bring new valuable content to you. Make sure to give us feedback as well. That will return tenfold in value to you. Bye, everyone. Until next time.